Okay folks, we're back in Weston-super-Mare and it's my last MCU movie. I've been candid about this on Twitter and on Sunday Night Live as well. As far as I'm concerned, there is no Marvel Cinematic Universe without Tony Stark, Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. He made that cinematic universe what it is, and I think without him now, it's lost its heart. That's my opinion. Today, for the final MCU movie for me, it's time to go webhead time. Be interesting to see what Tom Holland can do as a follow-up to not only Homecoming, but also Avengers Endgame. Can he outdo what he did for Homecoming and improve? Or will this simply be another reboot that didn't do so well? After 2 hours, you'll know my opinion. MJ Knight, out.
Well, it's been a while since I've done one of these, so the 5-second rule goes into effect as of now. Okay. I stated in the spoiler-free that the writing is fluid and a consistent pace, so everything is kept interesting. That is very true. What I couldn't say in the spoiler-free, because, it defeats the purpose of calling it a non-spoiler review if you give too many details away, is that this movie has a bit of an identity crisis. The bits where Peter is having a lot of contemplation of the emotional weight of trying to live up to the mantle of being the next Iron Man, which, if I recall correctly, he spent the majority of Homecoming being told and learning to just be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, which he's trying to carry over into this movie. And even he outright states to Nick Fury and company that, look, I'm just a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. This is, what I was told by my mentor. And he's told to sort of exceed his grasp. So we're ignoring the lessons that were learned from the first movie. Second, the movie keeps jumping around from either this sort of campy fun with the this field trip for the school going from New York to Italy to Prague to Germany to Paris and then London and then all the way back to New York. You see the likes of Jake, Michelle Jones, and Betty Brant. The whole Jake and Betty relationship, that I felt like that came out of nowhere. I mean, I know they say sometimes some relationships just happen organically. Sometimes you could have two people that were friends for years, and all of a sudden they click. One example is Chandler Bing and Monica Geller during the end of season 4 of Friends, going into season 5, when it was the trip to London and Ross and Emily getting married, and for whatever reason, Chandler and Monica clicked. It's one of those, okay, so that happened. Now that's not to say that Betty and Jake got that close, because no. But the same context applies that two friends that have known each other for years, yet all of a sudden they're in a relationship. Make of that what you will. But that just felt a little bit weird, a little bit out of the blue. And Michelle spent the better part of Homecoming being this obnoxious character that, would just say all these snarky things to put Peter and Jake down. And In this movie, it feels like you're looking at a completely different character. All of a sudden, she has feelings for him, she cares for him, and the thing that didn't do it for me is, all right, you get maybe an inkling in Homecoming that she does have a little twinkle in her eye for Peter. But here's the thing, this is something that should have developed over a course of, say, 2 to 3 movies. And we're in movie 2 now, and Michelle and Peter are a thing. And it's like, how? I appreciate, one character is not in the same place that they originally began in when they get to the end of their journey I know I've used this example a few times before, but you look at the character of Will Smith from the pilot episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and then you get to the very last episode when he's moving out to go to his own apartment to finish up college whilst the rest of the family moves back east. The personality traits are still there. He still carries himself in the same charismatic way. He still has this very larger-than-life presence. He still is very witty. But the man has responsibility. He has matured. He knows how to be discreet when he should be and when to let his hair down and just relax. I feel like with the way they've evolved Michelle's character, this is a sort of character progression that should have happened 2 movies down the line, where the idea of her warming up to Parker should have happened, maybe by the end of movie 2, she just starts being less obnoxious and less, I don't know if douchey is the right word, but I think for this movie she should have been more tolerable, absolutely, but there should have still been that angst a little bit, she's just being still rude for the sake of being rude, but it would have been toned down, and then maybe going into the 3rd movie, then she starts to show more affection. Now, the chemistry between Tom Holland and Zendaya, or Zendaya, I don't know how you pronounce it, so I apologize ahead of time. But their chemistry is just adorable. It's in a similar vein to Andrew Garfield, who I consider the greatest Spider-Man live-action actor of all time. That is my opinion. I'm sticking with it. And with Gwen Stacy being played by Emma Stone, who, at this point in time, she is the best actress to play Spidey's love interest. My opinion, I'm sticking with it. They had an adorable chemistry to where you're like, oh, you two are cute together. And oddly enough, they did actually date in real life for a time. I mean, whether Tom will actually date Zendaya in real life, I don't know, but it'll be cute if they do. But this is and I'll get more into casting in a little bit, but it's just the way that the rest of the writing's done, where this is another movie where somebody has been screwed over by Tony Stark in the past. Obadiah Stane was screwed over by Stark, although, to be fair to Tony, he wanted to stop making weapons because of what he witnessed, out in the field when he got the shrapnel in his chest. So, on that one, yeah, he screwed someone over, but at the same time, he was actually doing it for a legitimate reason. One of the engineers reprises his role from the first Iron Man movie, Peter Billingsley, as William, I don't know if it's Ginter or Ginter Reaver. He got, subsequently let go, disappeared, because this is the first time we've seen him since the first Iron Man. And Quentin Beck, who created the holographic tech that was showcased in Captain America Civil War, but renames his tech to Barf and then fires Quentin Beck. So this is not so much necessarily so much a movie about Spider-Man taking a residential trip into Europe. This movie may as well be called The People That Tony Stark Screwed Over. Now, RDJ does appear in the movie, but it's through the use of archive footage from him showing off the holographic tech from Civil War, and to some pictorial pieces that was used in his award ceremony from the first Iron Man. So it was nice to see a callback to that. I'm starting to understand why some fans took it a little bit personally, because you'll have a sequence where Parker and Quentin Beck, who's being nicknamed Mysterio now, have, averted a disaster happening in Venice, but then afterwards it's all jokey sort of thing. Now, I appreciate with Spider-Man that telling jokes is a facade of masking what he's really feeling, and also humor is a coping mechanism. In a similar context, if you look at the first Mummy movie by Stephen Sommers in 1999, there's humor within the action. Whereas, and I've quoted this quite a few times in the past, where Rick O'Connell will ask Evie how she's feeling, and then John, or it's either Evie's brother would just go and say, "Well, I don't know, I'm feeling up, a little bit weird in the back," and he's giving this look to say, "Dude, I wasn't asking you." But that still works in that setting, but I just feel as though there wasn't a balance. Now, I'm not saying for one second there shouldn't be humor within a Spider-Man flick. No, that is not the case at all. It just needs to be used appropriately. And the whole thing of Parker handing Edith over, which is an anagram that, Tony liked to use, particularly with Jarvis or with Veronica. Edith was, "Even in death, I am the hero." He handed over a global satellite surveillance and drone tech to somebody he didn't even know. Now, to be fair to Peter, he thought he was doing the right thing, handing it over to somebody that would have more maturity and a little bit more tech savvy and a bit more experience. Yeah, Gyllenhaal is in his late 30s right now, so presumably he's being portrayed as a man in his early to mid 30s in this. And little thing that not too many people know, Jake Gyllenhaal was originally supposed to replace Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man in Spider-Man 2 because Maguire had been injured at the time, suffering some kind of back problems, and Gyllenhaal was set to replace him, but Maguire recovered in time to actually reprise his role. So I feel like Gyllenhaal in this is kind of an unintentional cameo, because some people look and say, hey, he was supposed to be Spider-Man at one stage. And also because Gyllenhaal's just a good actor. But yeah, he hands Edith over to Quentin Beck. We were meant to believe that because of the snap, that Quentin Beck was supposed to be from an alternate Earth, which they actually do reference it as Earth 616 Parker resides in, whilst the one that Beck is from is 683. That turns out to be complete nonsensical, because as soon as he gets the glasses, I use heel turn, within wrestling, because, it's what I've grown up on in the last 20 years. there are two types of heel turns. There's what we call a soft heel turn, where it's something that gradually happens over time, where you see a very slow but progressive change in the character's traits, dynamics, whatever you choose to call it. And then there's a hard heel turn, which is, somebody goes from good guy to bad guy within like 3 seconds. Whereas a soft turn, like I say, it might take a few weeks, a month, 2 months. But this was like a severe, hard heel turn to where you're like, it's like, Marvel, could you just once actually surprise me and actually don't do the paint by the numbers kind of thing? So you get marked down for that, because I actually wanted to be surprised for a change. And it feels like I'm watching the first movie again, where Peter screws up and he's having to go and get retribution by having to learn responsibility yet again. I mean, it's one thing if you have somebody screw up for the first time in, say, 4 or 5 movies since they had screwed up originally, but this is movie 2, and Parker has screwed up again, and he's learning more or less the same lesson they had learned from Homecoming, where he's learning the point of responsibility, and at the time, I get what Parker was trying to do. He's just a kid at 16 years young. He doesn't know any better, and he thought it would be the smart idea to hand Edith over to somebody who has wisdom, maturity, and responsibility. The problem is the person he hands responsibility over to is an egotistical douchebag. So that didn't help matters. It's only then, after he realised how badly he screwed up, he's like, okay. And it's Happy Hogan that actually says to him, your friends are in danger, so what are you going to do about it? And even makes the point of saying that, hey, Tony chose well when he made you, his protege. Because, it's like, you're not Iron Man. Not even Tony could best himself, because he was always second-guessing himself. But you've got a strong, moral compass head on your shoulders. You are about responsibility. You are about doing the right thing. And I did like the callback to the first Iron Man movie when he's making the new suit on the plane. And the thing I kind of raised an eyebrow to is where Happy goes, I'll get the music, and he's playing the AC/DC song from the first Iron Man movie, and Parker just says, oh, I love Led Zeppelin. I'm like, really? But I did like the callback, and I did like the infrared tech where Parker is looking at how it will look and feel before actually designing the suit properly, in the same manner that Tony Stark was looking at how the repulsor gloves would look whilst he was actually still designing it in a 3D infrared perspective. So I did like the callback to that. The things I can say positively with this is that the pacing is smooth and it keeps things interesting and keeps things on track. Biggest problem that I have with it is there's a sense of the identity crisis. It feels like it's on a similar level to that of the Mummy reboot from 2017. The only difference is, Spider-Man's actually... This movie's actually more likable than the Mummy reboot. But at the same time, this movie has its similar share of problems. As for cast and characterization, I felt like Tom Holland was much more developed as Peter Parker and Spider-Man this time. Zendaya, as I mentioned, I actually enjoyed her performance this time around. I still think it's too early to soften up the character of Michelle. I mean, it was nice to see where she's actually a little bit more people-friendly this time around, as opposed to the obnoxious character from the first movie, but, it is what it is. Jon Favreau being back as Happy Hogan, and I think this is probably his best performance because it feels like he's allowed to loosen up a little bit. He's allowed to actually kind of live up to, the nickname of Happy Hogan, where, he's just a little bit more carefree and a little bit more laid back, as opposed to, the proverbial stick in the mud as he had been since the first Iron Man. Marissa Tomei, what's there to say about her? She's like a fine wine. She simply gets better with the passage of time. Jacob Batalon, is Ned. Why do I keep saying Jake for it? Never mind. I do feel like he had gotten better this time around. I feel like Ned felt a little bit more comfortable knowing the nuances of what he had to do and what he couldn't do with Parker, knowing his secret, and now that Michelle knows it. But she works it out, but even he kind of drops the ball, particularly when he sees the projector that Beck had been using and starts figuring out that Mysterio is not who he claims to be. Sam Jackson knocks it out of the park, as he so often does. I was a little bit surprised to see Skrulls posing as Maria Hill and as Nick Fury, whilst Fury's vacationing on a spaceship up in the universe somewhere. Why he was doing that, I honestly couldn't tell you. It did feel like one of those, really, we're doing this? And J.K. Simmons returns for the first time in a live-action movie as J. Jonah Jameson since Spider-Man 3, and I can honestly say, despite the fact he wasn't wearing the hairpiece that he had worn from the first 3 movies, I can honestly say the man has not missed a step. He came back in only for mere moments as JJ, and he hit another home run. It's just like, it's true for some people with what they say. For some people, it's like riding a bike. They never forget it. And he didn't... I felt like he probably came in, just did this on the fly, because it felt like he had never walked away from the set. It's almost like Spider-Man 3 ended a few weeks ago, and he just walks onto set saying, okay, let's do this again. And to be fair, he had been asking for years to come back as Jameson, because he even wanted to be part of the Amazing Spider-Man franchise, because there was a cameo of JJ via email. Because Parker sends an email saying, Mr. Jameson, I don't think Spider-Man is who you think he is. I think he's an actual force that can actually help New York. And he sends an email that just says, wrong! So I felt that was lazy with the way they handled that. But seeing JJ at the end of the movie, it's just like, that was great. Jake Gyllenhaal, despite what I feel with regards to the way he did a hard heel turn so quickly, Gyllenhaal is just such a great actor that he made it work. Beck is a very charming character. At the beginning, you really dig the character. You actually have sympathy for him. You actually, until we get his backstory, and well, he's not as genuine as you would think. But Gyllenhaal has the, you know, the wit and the panache to pull that off, whereby he still has that charm as a good guy, but at the same time, it's just like, oh, come on, man, do you really have to do that? And it would have been interesting to see how he could have been as Spider-Man in Spider-Man 2. That would have been an interesting set of circumstances, but it is what it is. I don't think there was ever one actor in this that turned in a poor performance. I do feel like the rest of Peter's class buddies were a little bit underdeveloped, because... And the kid who played Flash, Tony Revolori, I felt like he was pretty much doing the same kind of beats and the same repertoire from the first movie. He hadn't really grown or developed as a character. Now, again, that's probably just down to the material that they fed him, but I did not dig his character this time around. I felt it was just doing the same thing from the first time, and it didn't do anything for me. It's just like, ugh, you know? So, make of that what you will. The score, well, it's from, hang on, pronounce this properly, Michael Giacchino. And keep in mind, this is a man that did the score for the Lost World Jurassic Park video game and has done the score for the last two Jurassic Park movies, so you know what you're getting with this movie. Visual effects, I'm starting to agree with a lot of fans on this. Why did they have to keep giving Spider-Man suit this CG finish? With the Iron Spider suit, I get that, because it's meant to have a metallic suit is going to have this kind of finish where it has a shine to it. But when you have something that is essentially fabric, you don't need it to, look uber glossy and too shiny, because then people can tell that it's, it's CG that's trying to look metallic. But when you've got something that's material, i.e. fabric, not metal, it's, people are not going to buy into it. So I suppose the only thing that could mark visual effects down for is the fact that they tried to make the suit look too perfect with regards to how the overall product would look. I mean, the way they had the suit in Civil War is just like, nope, that's fine. Leave it alone. Although, I would still argue the best Spider-Man suit on screen is Amazing 2, and that's one of the very few things that I can actually give that movie props for. That and the chemistry between Garfield and Stone, but, But yeah, aside from that, visual effects are just fine. Overall, it's a good follow-up to Endgame. It's a very weird movie to end Phase 3 on, because I think this would have been more appropriate if they had this movie before Endgame, because the context of the subtitle of Endgame is pretty much self-explanatory. It's Endgame. The end. Done. Finito. And yet we end with Far From Home. I'd like to be able to say how this is going to go, but as I said at the start of the preview, this is my last MCU movie. On the basis of, without RDJ playing Tony Stark and Iron Man, there is no Marvel Cinematic Universe. because he is that cinematic universe. Without the first Iron Man, and say what we will about Iron Man 2 and the less said about Iron Man 3. Ugh, hate that movie. And then him subsequently showing up in, all four Avengers movies, including Captain America 3 and then Spider-Man Homecoming. Everyone kept coming back to the MCU because of the charismatic and magnetic charm of Tony Stark. Although you could say the same, it's because of RDJ as well, but the lines between RDJ and Tony Stark are so blurred, you question, where does the actor begin and where does the character end? And it's like I say, there is no MCU without Iron Man. I don't think it's going to work with Captain Marvel because, the audiences have pretty much told Marvel and Disney exactly what they thought about that. I mean, if you look online, whether it's on YouTube or on Twitter, where people are uploading pictures to where they see maybe only 4 or 5 people in the rows watching Captain Marvel. I know that they say the movie did good numbers, but the rumor mill is that Disney bought their own tickets. I don't know if that is fact. I don't know if that's fact. But at the same time, if that is the case, then it kind of shows either what little faith they had in their project, or the fact that they want this to to perform so badly, yet they were willing to buy their own tickets. Although it was rumored back in the day that Brian Epstein, the manager of the Beatles, actually allegedly bought X amount of copies of one particular single just to try and get them to go to number 1. I don't know if that's fact. You can leave, your thoughts in the comments section below, because again, I'm only stating what's been said on The Wire for years. But if that is indeed true that Disney did self-inflate their own ticket sales, that's ooh. But again, I don't know that for fact, so treat it as rumor and speculation until further notice. But as I've stated on quite a few times, I don't think Captain Marvel's the one to bet on to be the one to guide the MCU into the future. Now, for context, I don't have anything negative to say about Brie Larson's acting, but at the same time, I can't really contribute anything positive because the only thing I've seen her in that could be seen as acting is the music video for She Said. And that's not really the same thing. So, for acting, I don't know. What I do know is some of her controversial comments in interviews and at an awards ceremony where she had some choice words to say about a reviewer's opinion about A Wrinkle in Time. I'm not going to go repeating exactly what she said because there's a time and a place for it, and this ain't it. But I did walk away from that video with a not so supportive opinion of her. I understand that she has her own thoughts and beliefs on what should and what should not be done within the movie industry, but I think when you're promoting a movie in particular that is going to potentially have big numbers done at the box office, I think it's appropriate to keep your political beliefs to yourself and just be professional. Now, to my understanding, both Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. have very strong political views, but they don't bring it up in interviews when promoting Marvel Cinematic Universe movies because they know they need to be professional. And plus, there's been multiple videos of where the original actors for the Avengers don't like being around Brie Larson. Particularly Don Cheadle, Jeremy Renner, and even Chris Hemsworth. They just did not seem to be that comfortable around her. I mean, you go look it up for yourself and, you know, see the body language in question. It's like, ooh. You know, that's the sort of tension you could cut with a knife. But yeah, I don't think Captain Marvel's the one to bet on. And yeah, like I've said, I don't think there is an MCU without Iron Man, because Tony Stark made that cinematic universe what it is, and without him, it's nothing. Now, I know there are some people that will have a disagreement with that, and you know what? That's absolutely fine. We can just agree to disagree. If you believe that the MCU can continue on without Robert Downey Jr., then heck, you know, cool. I hope that works out for you. But I think after 20 plus movies, Endgame should have been it. Because again, not to sound like a broken record, the meaning is in the title. Endgame. That's it. All done. No extra time, no do-overs. And yeah. It's going to feel weird when MCU movies get released in the future now. But, you know, even Kaiju Noir has actually said, this is where I get off. Because, like I say, I'm an Iron Man fan. I think RDJ is and will always be the right guy to play Iron Man. Because even the late Stan Lee said that RDJ was born to play him. And if you find it on YouTube as well, there's footage from a Comic-Con where RDJ just goes over and hugs Stan. And, you know, knowing what we know now, particularly last year when we lost Stan, you know, that hug probably means a lot more to RDJ now. So yeah. To close the first ticket of Season 13, this is MJ Knight, signing off for Real Features and my last MCU movie. It's been fun, guys, but this is where I leave. Good night from the night.